You know, there's people that say if you stare at this background too long, it messes with your eyes. It seems fine to me. I don't know what they're talking about. Anyway, here is your wrestling news. A huge title change for WWE Payback is rumoured. Future Raw plans for Keith Lee have been revealed. And we have the real reason the hair versus hair match was changed at SummerSlam. We'll talk about it in a bit. So the road to WWE Payback has begun. It's a bit like the journey to the shops to buy a newspaper. It's not that long. This Sunday, Payback lands, and they're shaping up the card very quickly because they have to. Some matches announced for the Raw side of things, which we'll get to in a second, but for SmackDown, a huge main event already confirmed. It will see The Fiend defending his Universal Championship against Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns. Now, according to WrestlingNews.co, this Sunday, Roman Reigns will become the Universal Champion. They say, quote, Reigns was supposed to win the Universal Championship from Goldberg at Mania. Now, the plan is for Reigns to take the title from Wyatt. The word going around backstage tonight was that the title change may happen as soon as next Sunday at Payback. There is a vibe about Roman Reigns' comeback that Vince just wants to pick up where he left off with the character. There was talk, and we mentioned this in the news yesterday, how this edgier Roman Reigns was the Roman Reigns that we were going to see after WrestleMania. This was going to be a rougher, less cartoony version of the big dog. And it looks as if now he's back in the fold, they're just going to pick straight up. Don't know how I feel about The Fiend being essentially a transitional champion here. For me, I would have maybe preferred Braun to have kept the belt, have some non-finish type thing, and then have Roman interfere, and then have Roman win it from Braun at Payback. I don't know. I just don't like the idea of giving The Fiend the belt and then taking it away from him again. Just what I think. I don't know. But either way, that looks like it's going to be the main event for Payback. We see Roman Reigns once again ascend as the Universal Champion. Mixed reviews to the return of Roman Reigns. I've seen some people really happy to see him back. I've seen quite a few people very angry to see him back in the folds. And I'm intrigued to see where they go with him from here. There certainly is a differential to the character. Like there is, I keep using the word edgier, but that's how they've described it. That is clearly what they want to do. We'll see how this plays out at Payback. Also at Payback, a few matches announced for the Raw side of things. We're going to see the women's tag team titles defended by the Golden Role Models, taking on Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. We will also see the US title on the line as Apollo Crews defends against Bobby Lashley. And Randy Orton is going to welcome the newest arrival to the Raw brand in style. It's Randy Orton versus Keith Lee at Payback. A match they tried to have on Raw last night. Didn't quite pan out the way they hoped. We'll talk more about that on Raw Graded a little later on. And Ross will have something to say as well on WTF moments from Monday Night Raw on the Cultaholic YouTube channel later today. Now, when it comes to Keith Lee arriving on Monday Night Raw, it looks as if Vince McMahon and the writing team have big plans for our boy Keith. According to PW Insider, Keith Lee is going to be presented on Raw as one of the top babyfaces going forward. Good luck. Happy with that. We're told at some point as well, the plan is to turn him heel to feud with the top babyface over the WWE Championship. Now, I know there's a few people who are a bit concerned about Chapter 1 of Keith Lee on Monday Night Raw. We'll talk about that in Raw Graded later on today. And there'll be a few who are concerned at the idea of turning Keith Lee heel, and I'm actually not one of them. Personally, there is elements to Keith Lee's personality that I think you could crank the volume up and make a really interesting heel out of. So I'm not against Keith Lee being a heel. I think that might be quite fun. I mean, his catchphrase is "bask in my glory." Like when you really look at it, it's a pretty heelish thing to say. Hi, look how brilliant I am! Hooray! It's quite a heelish thing, isn't it? Keith Lee in a suit, talking down to people, telling them to bask in his glory. That's a good heel, that. That's a good heel. The Keith Lee's journey on Monday Night Raw should be an interesting one. And I know, believe me, I know that WWE has a habit of getting these call-ups a bit wrong. And right now, they are essentially playing with my favourite toy. And I'm watching cautiously and nervously to make sure they don't break it. It was the first Monday Night Raw from the Thunderdome last night. Incidentally, the guy who held up the Fire Velveteen Dream sign at SummerSlam has apparently been banned from the Thunderdome. That's what we're hearing this morning. There seems like there's quite a strong bit of control and coaching that goes on during the Thunderdome, as Dave Meltzer has reported about in the Wrestling Observer Radio Show. He says the basic gist is the Thunderdome is like the WCW Orlando taping. So remember when they used to do WCW at a Disney World? They would have somebody holding up signs that say boo and cheer. You essentially get cheerleading and guidance whilst you are watching Thunderdome. They'll be telling you, oh, here comes the WWE champion, go crazy, way, oh, here comes, oh, he's a nasty one, she's a bad egg, thumbs down everybody. So you've got somebody in your ear guiding you through some of the reactions that you have to do. That's not unlike most other TV shows. It's not unlike having cheer signs and boo signs at other events and stuff. It's kind of like pantomime, where you would have like very strong points in which to boo and to cheer. They wouldn't tell you outright at a panto, but hopefully you get the metaphor. So if you are going to be a part of WWE Thunderdome, you're going to have a WWE producer in your ear telling you when to cheer and when to boo. And, you could play the game or not. It's up to you. Will we see Pat McAfee in a WWE ring again? So Pat had a heck of a showing on Saturday at NXT TakeOver 30, and he spoke to ESPN about how he feels sort of removed from it and what's coming up next. He says, when it came to the match on Saturday, I was only focused on the match. I was focused on how do I go in there, put on a hell of a show, a hell of a fight, and get a win. And then we'll worry about everything after that on Sunday. And then it got to Sunday, and I woke up. Neck was sore, back was sore, foot was sore. I got flipped on my head. To be completely honest, I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen. I'm not under contract to do anything else with Mr. H. I assume he and I will talk about this at some point, because I heard his comments in the press conference afterwards, which were very nice. Pat McAfee's also said that his goal that night was to put on a performance that showed respect to the art of professional wrestling. And I think he did that. I genuinely think for a non-wrestler, Pat McAfee's performance was exceptional. Like, he came in, he showed respect for the business, and he grafted in that match as a non-wrestler. And I wouldn't be against seeing him again at some point. Genuinely, I wouldn't. The WWE Network has started taking on independent companies. We've seen ICW, Evolve, Progress, WXW, all represented on the service, and it looked as if Chikara was going to get a similar showcase. So Mike Quackenbush had been doing some work with WWE in the Performance Center whilst Chikara was still open. So these conversations could have very likely been happening. However, following the speaking out movement, Mike Quackenbush stepped away from wrestling, and in doing so, closed Chikara and the Wrestle Factory. So at the moment, those talks have gone completely silent, but we came very close to seeing Chikara as part of WWE Network. Now, don't want to speak on the allegations made towards Mike Quackenbush, but I want to talk about how much I miss Chikara. Like, such a wacky wrestling product that was off the beaten track, lived in its own universe, marched to the beats of its own drum. Wrestling silliness. I always think wrestling's at its best when it's inherently nonsense. And I've always been a fan of Chikara. So if there is a wrestling promoter that next year feels like they're in a position to maybe get things going again, maybe want to start some kind of Chikara 2.0, let's talk. Let's talk business. And finally, at SummerSlam, we were supposed to see Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, where the loser ends up in the barbershop chair. That ended up not being the case. And we have some details on the reason as to why it changed to a loser leaves WWE match. And for that, we turn to Meltzer, who says the reason why they switched the stipulation from hair versus hair to loser leaves town is because Sonya Deville's lawyer said that with this thing going on regarding, of course, the attempted abduction and the aggravated stalking from a fan in speech marks. So all of that is still going on. They say her lawyer basically said, with this thing going on, it's probably not a good idea to cut your hair and get your head shaved for court. So they did an impromptu loser leaves town. Maybe because of the case, she's going to take some time off. I know there's other projects she was looking at doing. Now, obviously, she's going to be back at some point, and I look forward to seeing Sonya Deville back in a WWE ring. Genuinely, the match they had at SummerSlam was a surprise to me. That was the one thing I didn't see coming, was Deville and Rose having basically a late 90s Attitude Era match. Quite an aggressively contested one as well. And we send our best to Sonya Deville, who's going through an horrible time with all this nonsense at the moment, and we hope to see her back in a WWE ring very soon. She's made some promises about getting into Raw Underground and fighting Shayna Baszler, and that is something I would like shot into my veins. Thank you, please. Stay safe. Love you. Bye.